Once upon a midnight dreary. Welcome. In this reading, I invite you to revisit Edgar Allan Poe's haunting masterpiece, The Raven. First published in 1845, this iconic poem has fascinated readers for generations with its hypnotic rhythm and unforgettable imagery. More than a tale of loss and longing, it's a journey into the mind's shadowy corners, where grief blurs with the supernatural. Now, as you listen, notice the musicality of Poe's language, the repeated sounds and the carefully chosen words that pull you deeper into the narrator's descent. Watch how his questions to the raven shift from curiosity to desperation, revealing a gradual unraveling that can be overlooked. Even if the raven feels familiar, let its atmosphere and layers of meaning draw you in afresh. And when the reading is complete, stay with us as we explore questions such as, why did he choose a raven? And how has Poe shaped our modern culture? And what lessons can we take from this dark but unforgettable poem? But now, The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more. Distinctly, I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember brought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, this it is, and nothing more." Presently, my soul grew stronger. Hesitating, then no longer, "Sir," said I, or "Madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here, I opened wide the door, darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. The only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered. An echo murmured back the word, "Lenore?" Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber, turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flit and flutter, there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least of made he, not a minute's stop or stady, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of his countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore? Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Tell us, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whose unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster until his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore of nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. And then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease, reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tilted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Eden it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Allan, quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door, quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming. And the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. Thank you for your attention. I certainly hope you enjoyed this epic poem. My comments are divided into 3 sections, run a little bit longer than normal this time. First, I'm going to share some thoughts designed, I hope at least, to help deepen your appreciation of the poem. Secondly, I'm going to reflect a little bit on how Poe's influence on radio, television, and movies enlarges our response to the poem and indeed to all of Poe's works. Finally, I'm going to relate a personal experience that hopefully encourage you who are sharing this narrator's despair. Notice how 2 of the poems we've already considered, If and Invictus, celebrate resilience and the ability to rise above hardship. The raven shows us the opposite, what happens when that resilience breaks down. Think about the contrast in the closing lines of each. In If, we have, you'll be a man, my son. In Invictus, we have, I am the captain of my soul. But in the raven, my soul from out that shadow shall be lifted nevermore. This is, to me, not really a poem about a bird. It's about a man trapped in a conversation with his own despair. The narrator keeps asking questions that he knows will only hurt him. And ask yourself, why does he persist in asking the raven about Lenore when he knows the only answer he will hear is nevermore? It tells us something profound about grief and how, if we're not careful, we can actually almost become addicted to our pain. Now, why a raven? Poe explained in his essay, The Philosophy of Composition, that he wanted a symbol of melancholy and doom. And a raven was perfect. Incidentally, by the 1400s, a flock of ravens was being referred to as an unkindness in the Book of St. Albans. You have to agree that this raven is certainly a poster child for that definition. And just before Poe wrote The Raven, Charles Dickens had made his own pet raven, Grip, famous in Barnaby Rudge. That raven is now on display, as a matter of fact. I think to truly appreciate this poem, you really should read it out loud yourself. Poe's musical language comes alive when spoken, and the way you will read it and the music you will have will be different than when you listen to it. Now, since this is the 4th poem in the series, I'll be shortly awarding a copy of 101 Famous Poems to a subscriber. This poem is found, in fact, on page 115. The names of most of my subscribers, unfortunately, are not available to me. So if you are a subscriber and wish to be in the running for that drawing, please note that in a comment. And I'll be providing the winner with an email address they can use to provide me with the information needed to get the volume to them, so protect their privacy. Now, when I was a teenager, Poe's stories drew me in partly because of the way they lived in popular culture at the time. Now, the raven does appear, as I said, in the 101 famous poems, so I've known it for a long time, but I also heard echoes of it in radio shows like Inner Sanctum. I still remember huddling in my room with the lights off, covers pulled up, listening to its gothic tales of suspense. Carried much the same sense of dread you find not only in The Raven, but all of Poe's works. So by the time I encountered Poe in high school, I was already primed to appreciate him. His influence showed up everywhere. Classic horror films, Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, seemed ever present. The TV programs like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, and even Ingmar Bergman's films, which I carried much of that same mood. I wonder if any of you have ever found yourself drawn to those same tales and realized the debt owed Poe for that whole genre. And incidentally, for a lighter touch, the Simpsons of all shows once devoted a whole segment to the Raven. And it is this poem that gave its name to an NFL team, the Baltimore Ravens. Poe lived in Baltimore, so the connection is fitting. And I want to share something with you. If you ever find yourself under a shadow like the narrator of The Raven, I want you to know that you don't have to believe that it is forever. That voice of despair can be replaced, and whether it's your faith, maybe professional help, support groups, family, and friends, a combination of all of them, there's a way out, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. And you need not remain in that shadow. And if I could do it, and trust me, you can too. And I did do it. So you too can become the master of your fate. Now, I experienced the shadow the narrator feels, much the same way that he felt it, that he is never going to be lifted from it. I felt the same way. My first wife, Nikki, and I got married at the end of my college years. She was the mother of my children, my partner, my companion for 18 years. Then she passed, leaving me children that were 12 and 15. My Lenore was gone, the only companion I'd had for really all of my adult life at that point. Believe me, I know what it means to invite ravens into my chamber. Voices of doubt and despair that ask whether I would ever rise from that shadow. The raven didn't occur to me. I had other things on my mind, but certainly the 22nd Psalm did. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Yet I was feeling that narrator's pain. But I did discover that there was balm in Gilead. The shadow wasn't permanent. Now, in my case, I found help through my faith and through the love of family and friends. Like the Israelites, I found there was a way out of this wilderness. It was shown to me. The promises in Psalms and Romans of God's ever-presence and the admonition in Philippians honor my thinking were all among the things that I found very helpful. And I discovered that once I no longer needed to make those ravens comfortable, they left. And this, in fact, allowed a whole new chapter to open up in my experience. Marge, who I've mentioned in previous poems, came into my life shortly thereafter, along with her 3 children. And we now have shared 45 wonderful years together. You may find a different source for your support, but the message I have is that you can find that support and with it rise out of that shadow. I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments that you may have. Have you experienced that shadow of despair? How in fact, did you rise out of it? And your comments could be very important. They could be exactly the encouragement that someone else needs. So don't hesitate to make them. Our next reading in 2 weeks, total different change of pace. It's a lighthearted example of Victorian fantasy. The Owl and the Pussycat. Favorite of mine and when I was very young and my children when they were young. So I hope you will join me for that. Until then, Be sure to guard your health and remain engaged. And thanks again for your attention.